Very serious development has just taken place in the last few minutes. Very serious development has just taken place in the last few minutes in the Middle East. A Navy battle group is now on a mission to stop ships from Iran before they can deliver weapons to rebel fighters. Make no mistake, this is a major escalation in the fighting in Yemen and the proxy war that we're in right now between Iran and the United States. The Pentagon just announced minutes ago that it sent an aircraft carrier loaded with jets along with a Navy cruiser to the waters off Yemen. That's where the Houthi rebels you've heard so much about have the nation's pro-American government on the run. The fighting's been playing out for weeks there. Iran backs these rebels who took over Yemen's capital, forced the president of the country to escape, and the militants are still on the move. The thinking is Iran is trying to get weapons and supplies to those Houthi rebels, and the United States is there to stop it. Saudi Arabia and several allies have tried to beat back the rebels with airstrikes. The Saudis' big concern is a serious one, that its arch enemy, Iran, could take control of Yemen, which shares a long border with Saudi Arabia. But there's much more at play here. Iran made no secret about sending those weapons to the rebels. The government announced it was sending as many as 9 ships of supplies to Yemen, and Iran didn't try to hide it at all. Pentagon officials say it's as if Iran is trying to tell the United States what it's doing. Saudi Arabia and Egypt, on the other hand, already have ships trying to block Yemen's waters. Now the United States joins what could turn into a major face-off between Iran and the United States and the West. Let's get the very latest breaking details from the Pentagon and our correspondent Jennifer Griffin. What can you tell us about this breaking news out of the Arabian Sea, Jen?
Well, Shep, we are just learning, as you just reported, that the U.S. Navy has repositioned the USS Theodore Roosevelt, an aircraft carrier escorted by the USS Normandy, a guided missile cruiser, from the Gulf into the Arabian Sea with the purpose of potentially intercepting suspected Iranian weapon shipments to the Houthis in Yemen, enforcing the blockade against supplying militants in Yemen, Shep.
Why is this significant in terms of timing?
Well, it's significant, Shep, because the USS Roosevelt just arrived in the Persian Gulf to replace the USS Carl Vinson, which had been supporting air operations over Iraq. We're told the Roosevelt, which had just arrived on station in recent days, has now retransited the Strait of Hormuz, reversing course. It has now taken station in the Arabian Sea to help enforce this blockade of Yemen and to keep shipping lanes open. Clearly, they are concerned about Iranian resupply of the Houthis. We heard a very defensive State Department spokesman, Marie Harf, say as much today at the State Department briefing.
There is a well-documented history of support for the Houthi, including in various State Department reports, money, weapons, support for a very long time.
I know there are statements in support of
there's a lot of evidence. Do you doubt this evidence, Saeed?
Right now, the USS Roosevelt will join about 9 U.S. Navy ships in the waters off Yemen amid reports that a convoy of Iranian ships are headed to Yemen to arm the Houthis. Saudi Arabia, of course, has been carrying out airstrikes, as you mentioned, against the Iranian-backed Houthis for more than 2 weeks. The U.S. is, of course, helping the Saudis now.
All right, Jennifer, thanks. So,
Human rights activist William Spring believes that the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia are collaborating on the ongoing aggression against Yemen. He says the crisis can only be resolved through political means.
It's very sad to see this destruction, but it could be halted. The new king should take firm measures to stop this escalating madness which is coming from the American neocons. The similar thing happened in Ukraine. You know, the use of unlimited power, apparently, and yet there is no real solution, just in a military option. What is needed is our talks and an actual solution to the basic problem of the Yemen. The Yemen should be allowed to run its own affairs. That's surely a basic rule of international diplomacy. The Saudi aggression doesn't allow that. We need to stop this Saudi aggression. And I think that we all know that you know, the Saudis and the Israelis and the Americans are all tied up together with the British And there is only one reason for that, and that is the enormous natural reserves in Saudi Arabia. We cannot see a solution to this other than a fundamental change of policy.
All right, moving on. The United States has begun training Ukrainian troops involved in the fighting which is occurring in the east of the country amid objections from Moscow. U.S. troops will train 900 members of Ukraine's National Guard. The training operation was officially announced in a ceremony at the presence of Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. Officials warned that Washington's move could destabilize Ukraine. The U.S. has also provided $75 million worth of non-lethal military aid to Kiev, but has refrained from supplying arms. Bloody fighting in eastern Ukraine has killed more than 6,000 people since last year. Alexander Nekrasov is a former Kremlin advisor joining us from London. Tell us what he thinks about this training. Alexander Nekrasov, welcome. So you have Ukraine's information minister saying that, we want to thank the U.S. because their know-how and knowledge about how to deal with a war is going to get translated to the Ukrainian, troops. Is Ukraine preparing for a war that we're unaware of?
Well, first of all, I think we should remember that NATO and the U.S. Have been helping the Ukrainian army all along. And they have been training not only the National Guard, as you mentioned in your introduction, but they are also helping those cutthroats, nationalists and neo-Nazis. For example, I have learned that the battalion called Azov, consisting of these cutthroats, they are also going to be trained by these American advisors. So we have been seeing it for a while. Now, the whole point of American involvement in Ukraine, which started with the funding of that coup in 2000, last year, which overthrew the legitimate government, was to create tension in Ukraine for a long time. Now, Americans failed to grab Crimea, which was the jewel in the crown for them, because they wanted that naval base there. And failing to do that, they are now basically waging a long-term campaign. And they are, when you say they're not providing arms yet, well, through third parties they do provide arms. They're not providing them officially, but unofficially, the Ukrainian army would not have had enough equipment and enough ammunition to fight the rebels in the east without some sort of support. And that is why we are witnessing now the training. It's not just part of this whole strategy, it's also a symbolic move to basically blackmail and threaten Russia into some sort of submission, which I doubt which will obviously work, and it will not work, obviously. But I think that this, this attempts by the Washington administration to create more tensions in Ukraine, we will continue seeing this for quite some time. I don't really see, any sort of agreement like Minsk II at the moment. We have the agreement, and then there'll probably be Minsk III, and so on. I don't think anything will help to stop the crisis in the eastern Ukraine.
Yeah, and of course, time is one of the factors here, because from what we understand, based on this training exercise, it's going to go on through till November. So that's many months down the road. I'm guessing that the sentiment is going to be kept high amongst these troops that are being trained. And of course, if you get trained for that long, then you have the tendency to want to attack. But you don't think there's going to be any breakthrough? Is that something that the U.S. U.S. and Ukraine perhaps are putting aside, since the training mission is going to go on through until November, that there won't be any thawing of relationship between U.S., Ukraine, and Russia?
Well, first of all, let me remind your viewers what happened in Minsk II. The Minsk II agreement was worked out when there was 10,000 Ukrainian troops and 1,000 of foreign mercenaries, that's citizens from the Western countries, surrounded at Debaltseve, the town of Debaltseve. They were basically in danger of being wiped out. Now that's 10,000 troops. The reason why Merkel and Hollande rushed to talk to the Russian side and to the Ukrainian rebels was because they realized they had to save those people, especially the 1,000 foreign mercenaries from all over the place, from all over Europe and so on. And that is why that agreement was basically hammered out very quickly to save the situation and to give breathing space to the Ukrainian army and those cutthroats, those killers who present themselves as some nationalists and heroes who are saving Ukraine. So once you know this, you will realize that this was just a temporary ceasefire. And now we see a lot of equipment, a lot of hardware, a lot of military personnel being trained and prepared for an offensive. And if you consider that these American advisors have come to train forces till November, which means that they are going to prepare the ground for another offensive. Now, you don't even need to be a strategist, a military strategist, to realize what these people are doing there. It's a dangerous game, yes, but they are doing what they have been planning to do. And that is why we will see more supplies coming in, we will see more foreign mercenaries coming in, and at the moment, I don't really see any will on the part of the Americans or the EU to strike any deal that would work.
All right, thank you very much. A pleasure. Alexander Nekrasov, their former Kremlin advisor, talking to us from London.
If you are watching this, the end has begun.
Isaiah 13. An oracle concerning Babylon that Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw. Raise a banner on a bare hilltop, shout to them, beckon to them to enter the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my holy ones. I have summoned my warriors to carry out my wrath, those who rejoice in my triumph. Listen, a noise on the mountains like that of a great multitude. Listen, an uproar among the kingdoms like nations massing together. The Lord Almighty is mustering an army for war. They come from faraway lands, from the ends of the heavens. The Lord and the weapons of his wrath, to destroy the whole country. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. Because of this, all hands will go limp. Every man's heart will melt. Terror will seize them. Pain and anguish will grip them. They will writhe like a woman in labor. They will look aghast at each other, their faces aflame. See, the day of the Lord is coming, a cruel day with wrath and fierce anger, to make the land desolate and destroy the sinners within it. The stars of heaven and their constellations will not show their light. The rising sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. I will punish the world for its evil, the wicked for their sins. I will put an end to the arrogance of the haughty and will humble the pride of the ruthless. I will make man scarcer than pure gold, more rare than the gold of Ophir. Therefore I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will shake from its place at the wrath of the Lord Almighty in the day of his burning anger. like a hunted gazelle, like sheep without a shepherd. Each will return to his own people, each will flee to his native land. Whoever is captured will be thrust through, all who are caught will fall by the sword. Their infants will be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses will be looted, and their wives ravished. See, I will stir up against them the Medes, who do not care for silver and have no delight in gold. Their bows will strike down the young men. They will have no mercy on infants, nor will they look with compassion on children. Babylon, the jewel of kingdoms, the glory of the Babylonians' pride, will be overthrown by God like Sodom and Gomorrah. She will never be inhabited or lived in through all generations. No Arab will pitch his tent there. No shepherd will rest his flock there. But desert creatures will lie there. Jackals will fill her houses. There the owls will dwell, and there the wild goats will leap about. Hyenas will howl in her strongholds, jackals in her luxurious palaces. Her time is at hand, and her days will not be prolonged.